Welcome to Finance Leaders Retirement Insights, the broadcast where we sit down with thought leaders in the world of finance who reveal their unexpected wisdom on the issues impacting retirement.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Finance Leaders. Today we're joined by financial expert Andrej Kandus, who has been in the industry for a number of years, specializing in some very unique strategies, some outside-the-box thinking that helps create extraordinary wealth for the folks that he works with. Welcome, Andrej.
Hey, everybody.
So let's start off with, let's tell everybody watching today a little bit about yourself and how you got started in the world of finance.
Okay. Well, I actually didn't get into the world of finance for decades in my career. I actually started and ran a couple of businesses in different industries, and each industry has its own set of problems, challenges, and just things that every small business owner faces, and a lot of times I felt, man, it would be nice to have a safety net, something that would help me survive the difficult times, even if my core business doesn't do so well. And that was like my quest to find something, how do I create these safety nets for myself and maybe for some other people. And as I went through my career, as I said, different industries, different markets, always some of them succeeded, some of them failed, usually for no fault of our own. It was really just the globalization that made things happen. But then at some point I decided I was always very fascinated and thought it was really important to be tax efficient, and then to have, obviously cash is king. I knew cash is king, so cash flow and tax efficient. And so I was looking for ways to save taxes legally, ethically, find ways to just keep more, because it was so challenging to make the money. And so I came up with certain solutions, and I just kept developing these concepts that I was mentored really well. I was really lucky to have good mentors, and so I then at some point I just got full-time into finance, and I love it. It's my passion. It's almost like I think of it as my calling, and I like this job very much.
So it really started as a side gig to kind of reinforce your core business, and evolved into your primary business, and that's what you do today. And you've been doing that's really what happened. That's really what happened. The core business I kind of transitioned the core businesses into just completely focused on finance. I mean, what I do is requires a full person. You can't do it, halfway. Everything that I've always done, I've done it. I'm doing it very thoroughly. I'm very, very process driven, very, very technical, and I want to do things well, and I just couldn't do it well if I wasn't totally immersed in it. So I transitioned my core. This is absolutely my core business now for more than a decade. Yeah, and you have a background as an engineer, so obviously the math was sort of a natural fit. And
I have an engineering background. Actually, one of my businesses was computer engineering as well in the past. I really always want to prove things to myself in mathematical terms, because that's, at the end of the day, besides of course, the objectives that everybody has and wishes to make things better financially, but things have to make mathematical sense. They have to be provable, right? They have to be, at least provable in relative terms. If not absolute terms, at least in relative terms, meaning, okay, if I'm comparing what I'm doing now to what could be done, which option looks better and for what reasons? How do the numbers look? You know, the numbers don't lie. The numbers, if you're honest with the numbers, they don't lie. So if you can prove with numbers that it's better, there's no question about it. So that's absolutely true.
So in this business, as in many other businesses, sometimes it's difficult to set yourself apart from others in the industry. How do you bring a unique value to the clients that you work with?
Well, I think that my really extensive business background really helps a lot, because even though my clients are business owners and non-business owners, their perspective is really helping me to understand the pains and the desires of many different people in different walks of life. And so it's just much easier to understand for me. I've been there, done that, and so it's just natural for me to kind of understand people's situations, even if they're very different. And that is really the difference, I think, that the value that I bring specifically, because it's just because of this fact. And in addition to that, then obviously because of my kind of really thorough approach, I because I'm passionate about this stuff, I handle every project very thoroughly and very holistically. So it's not, even though, yes, of course, the numbers, I have to prove the numbers, but it's also everything around the numbers. It's the family situation, it's the objectives, it's the desires of somebody. Everybody has a different story. So listening to that story and kind of enjoying listening to these stories and getting immersed in people's stories, I think it's kind of a talent that I have.
Well, I know since you and I have known each other, you've had kind of a unique perspective in trying to mitigate tax liability for your clients. I know that was obviously a passion of your own, to find ways to optimize your own tax situation as you entered the industry. In fact, I am aware that you also pursued an industry designation and you're a certified tax coach. How does that tax angle kind of play into how you help your clients?
The tax angle is huge. The tax angle, saving taxes, for every dollar saved, it puts less pressure on the performance of the gain in whatever we're trying to, how we're trying to grow the money. So saving taxes, if we know how to legally and ethically save taxes, that is a done deal. That is a guaranteed, you want to call it, return. If we can keep more, we don't have to make so much more. So that is the first thing that I look at. And actually, it's interesting. With the right approach, believe it or not, it is possible to totally, completely untax somebody's retirement. We need some time. We need typically about 5 years to restructure assets. But, untaxing the retirement, meaning that there's no taxes due in the future while drawing retirement income, that means with everything being equal, 2 to 3 times or even more times retirement income in people's take home retirement income. So it is a huge deal. So what happens is, with the same amount of money, we're able, with just using tax efficiencies, double or triple or even quadruple retirement income. So a lot of times I find people, even though they're saving, they're trying to save, they're doing whatever they can. They try to save as much money, but they're just not aware of the pitfalls, how much money they're going to lose to taxes when they retire. So it saves the day. It really saves the day. I mean, you can imagine 2 or 3 times more income. That is like night and day. It's the difference between, you know, having to move to a really cheap state to, you know, staying wherever you are, enjoy your grandchildren who are in the same state probably as you are. So it's a huge deal.
Yeah, it's pretty safe to say that taxes have a outsized impact on your wealth accumulation and your income in retirement. And so it's well worth the effort to learn about some of the strategies that are available for people to untax their retirement, as you say.
It is totally, I mean, it's so important. It's crucial. It's just crucial. And that's really, you know, what it's kind of like that's the first thing that we try to do. And in most cases that is totally possible. And the interesting thing is people are not aware, you know, most people, everybody does whatever they can. They try to save money, they have their 401ks, they have IRAs, but usually they don't even dare try to calculate what the future will bring, because the future, they know that it's probably not looking rosy, because they know even if they have $1 million saved, that's not a lot of money when you have to pay half of that to taxes. And it's just gonna take them, maybe they're gonna, you know, in 10 years they're gonna be broke if they do it this way. But if we can save taxes, if we can reduce those taxes to almost zero, just imagine it. And if that compounds, it's a totally different story.
Well, and I think this goes to kind of point out the advantage of your expertise is that the vast majority of advisors in the industry often overlook the tax impact of somebody's retirement or wealth accumulation. So it's sort of an afterthought, if at all, with a lot of advisors. And so your unique strategies and your unique position in the market, that you focus on this tax angle first, because it's often the largest expense over somebody's lifetime. You're tackling that before necessarily looking at, you know, just a pure rate of return, because you consider tax recapture or tax sheltering a guaranteed rate of return.
Absolutely. That's, as I said, that's a guaranteed rate of return. But it baffles me how the majority of the industry totally ignores the tax aspect. I mean, it's like when you're talking to a traditional financial planner, all they focus on is, okay, give me the give me some money to manage your money, and you know, if I lose, I make my money. If I gain, I make my money. So it's something that is not. It's almost like, to me, it seems unethical, because you can't not worry about the client's money in a holistic fashion, and you can't just, you know, take money from a client whether you lose or whether you win. And you know, just that fact, and the fact that even that the taxes are just totally ignored, it just doesn't make any sense to me, because that should be the first thing everybody should do, because, as you said, it's guaranteed return. And that doesn't, you know, 99% of the time, 99% of the people that I speak to, they have never met an advisor that would actually even touch on that point. Again, just baffles me.
So could you highlight maybe some of the most notable achievements in your time in the industry? Some success stories. I know you work with a lot of affluent business owners over the years. Perhaps you have a story about someone you've helped transform their financial situation through some of the strategies you deploy.
Yeah, I really like situations where somebody is interested and has the potential capacity to take care of several generations. It's just, you know, too many times we see family wealth totally disappear in the next generation, and that's just a it's a shame, right? Because The first generation really tries hard, builds wealth, and then for whatever reason, the second generation or third generation the wealth disappears. And with the strategies that we can use, that I utilize, not only do we reduce or totally eliminate taxes in growing wealth going forward, it also helps us really take care of 2 or 3 generations, believe it or not, with the same amount of money by using safe financial leverage in a tax-free bubble. And so those I really consider my biggest achievements, because it's kind of like it's a big challenge. It's a big challenge. People don't believe that is possible. But, if you have the right setup and the options are there, and if the client is open to looking at the different options that are available, we can totally achieve that.
So other than becoming a certified tax coach, how do you stay updated with the latest trends and changes in finance?
It's a constant. I live and breathe this stuff, and I just continuously look for ways to improve what we have. There's always room for improvement. There's always better ways. There's always ways to tweak things. It's a combination of constantly following on what platforms are available to us, what tools are available to us. But it's kind of like what I like to say. It's kind of maybe a stupid example, but we all have the same tools. But then it's what you do with the tools. It's kind of like, you're a painter. Everybody's got the same paints. They buy the same paints, but one Picasso is gonna draw something different than somebody that's not Picasso. And so it's really the ability to use these tools in the most efficient and sophisticated way to get the best results. And that really means a lot of trial and error. It's kind of like a heart surgeon. You have to do a lot of these surgeries. You have to specialize and do these things over and over again to really get a good feel, so it becomes second nature. So if there's no guessing. It's kind of like you're in the zone and you know what to do, and it comes naturally because you're so immersed in just how things are done. So
at this point, I think I'd like to ask you, a little bit about how you deal with the clients or prospective clients' fear of working with a stranger who's going to have a look under the hood and examine their financial life, and they might feel exposed during an initial meeting with you. How do you address that fear that people might have of working with a financial expert, maybe for the first time or just somebody new?
People are naturally skeptical, right? You don't know who you're talking to. You haven't met the person. It's natural. So it's important to get a feeling of the person you're talking to, and then obviously go with a pace that makes sense to both parties. And what I mean by pace, not everybody is open and just willing to share their financial situation, even less their family situation. So, you got to leave it to go at its own pace. And sometimes it goes fast, sometimes it goes slow, sometimes it's not really even the right time to talk about it now. We have to revisit maybe weeks later, maybe months later, maybe a year later. People, we start worrying or want to solve something when we feel it's the right time. And everybody has their own story, their own priorities. And I feel it is very important to listen to that and work in that fashion.
Do you have any particular examples of helping a client overcome an especially challenging financial situation?
Yeah, I had a situation where a client has children, grown-up children, but one of them is just is health challenged, and so he's very worried about this one of his children, and wanted to see how we could, if there's a way to create this kind of a backup plan for him. He was worried, well, when I pass away, what's going to happen? He may not be able to earn money just because of his health situation, and he was more worried about the son than himself. And with careful planning and restructuring assets, we're really able to set the stage so that the father is going to be okay, and the son with the same amount of money that was saved by the father, but by kind of restructuring it in a smart way, we're able to take care of in this situation 2 generations, just like I said before.
So let's talk a little bit about what strategies you employ to ensure your clients' financial goals are actually met.
Well, I focus on, I would say, for most people, unconventional strategies. These are not strategies that are well known or understood. For example, one of the really powerful strategies is something that I call distribution perfecta, which is a strategy, which is a set of strategies to take 401k or IRA money, and instead of having to pay taxes to convert it into a Roth type structure, meaning that it's never going to be taxed again, our strategy, it's a multi-tier strategy where we can first get the money out, get the assets out of the deferred account at but actually zero out of pocket in terms of taxes. And then as it's converted into not a straightforward Roth, but it has a Roth tax status, and it's managed, so it's guaranteed not to lose money, and it's basically there for life of somebody to harvest for their income. So basically what we're doing is we're converting 401k or IRA money to a Roth type structure, and then having it generate income into the future with no taxes as well. So imagine we're saving
no taxes on the conversion and on the income.
No taxes on the conversion and no taxes on income. That's unheard of for most people. People think that's impossible. It's you really have to show the numbers. You have to kind of explain. There's an educational process involved, but that is possible, and that is giving us that 2 to 3 to 4 times ratio in terms of how much income ends up in our pockets, how much retirement income ends in our pockets after tax, right? So it's this is what everybody wants, but they don't know how to achieve, and that's something that we've cracked the code for that.
Yeah, that's definitely a tall order to be able to actually convert that large taxable account. So if somebody has $1 million or more in that qualified plan account, they're thinking, gosh, I have a lot that has to be paid to Uncle Sam. And you have a strategy that helps unlock that and recapture those dollars for their own use.
Yeah, and it's not people forget. People have no idea, or they don't even think about it because they just think it's there's nothing they can do about it. But it's not only paying taxes on the distribution of the assets and the deferred account, it's also the effect of the so-called provisional income, which is taxation of Social Security once somebody has distribution from a deferred account. Plus, if that's not the worst, there's also additional cost of Medicare. So we're talking about, somebody that's got maybe $30,000 coming in Social Security, that there's suddenly, if that was their only taxable income in retirement, there's typically no tax up to a certain amount. Nowadays about $30,000. But once you have an additional distribution from a 401k, that 30K may be taxed 30%. So this person's not only losing taxes on the distribution on the deferred account, but also maybe $10,000 plus maybe $5,000 more cost of Medicare. So we're talking about $15,000 just kind of a penalty being taxed on Social Security and Medicare cost increases. So it's a huge deal.
So the strategies you use allow someone who's either already retired or maybe approaching retirement to position themselves in a way that there wouldn't even be tax on their Social Security benefits, potentially, depending on what their sources of income are.
Exactly. The goal is to, and what we are able to achieve is zero taxation on Social Security, zero increases in cost of Medicare, and no taxes on the retirement income. So it's
wow.
It's virtually it is untaxable. We do call it untaxable, and it is untaxable, believe it or not.
It sounds like a great opportunity for anybody watching today to learn how you can help them untax their retirement.
Well, I think everything that anybody that has some sense is at least going to try to learn these concepts, even if they don't execute. I do not understand why everybody who knows this wouldn't execute in it. And this usually what happens. I have not met anybody who wouldn't execute on these options if they know about them and if it's not too late. But it's a no-brainer. It's more of the issue is understanding and understanding that it's legit, that it's legal and ethical, that we're not doing anything that's illegal or unethical. That is the part that is important, and that takes some time, that takes some education. That is really part of the process. That's an important part of the process.
And so some of the strategies you deploy, it sounds like you've partnered with a law firm that knows some of this stuff as well. They help combine with some of the things you do with some additional things layered on top of that.
Yes, this is a very interesting partnership. I've found and partnered with a tax law firm that is kind of very complementary to what I do. And in fact, certain strategies that I've been using before, even partnering with them, we've improved together because we can stack different strategies on top of each other. So this effect of reduced taxes is even more achievable with this partnership, just because not only are we able to reduce taxes in retirement, we're also able to substantially reduce taxes, earned income taxes, while somebody's still active. It's a situation where nobody's going to pay, with our strategies, nobody's going to pay more than 20% in tax in earned income tax, which is huge for somebody that's in a higher effective tax bracket than 20%, which a lot of people that are, and even W-2 earners who usually have nowhere to turn to save taxes because they don't have really good ways to do tax planning. With the right strategies, we can really reduce the taxable income so that the maximum tax they're going to pay is 20%, even on earned income.
I think it'd probably be a big disservice to people watching today that if we didn't talk a little bit about the types of taxes that you can actually help mitigate. It's not just income tax, but it could also be capital gains taxes, correct?
Yes. So we look at several core, let's say, directions, core categories. The first category is income tax mitigation. So it's all about W-2 income, business income, any type of earned income. The second category is capital gains taxes. Capital gains taxes can get as high as almost, there's suggestions that these capital gains taxes may become higher than income taxes if everything goes by what's happening in today's economy. But so
I think there's a proposal out there right now to increase taxes to 44% on the capital gains side. So
exactly, it's crazy, right? So and capital gains events are usually large events. People are selling their businesses, people are selling property. These are millions of dollars of capital gains. So that's where most of the wealth of people actually sometimes is. And so reducing those taxes to half or deferring them indefinitely, and even first deferring them and then eliminating them by these exit strategies that we also have available, is a huge deal. So that's the second category, capital gains. The first category, earned income. The second category, capital gains. The third category is deferred account tax mitigation, meaning 401ks, IRAs, elimination of those taxes on distribution, which I started explaining before. And the last, to close the circle, is preserving estates, preserving large estates that would be taxable. It's sad to see that estates that the first generation has tried so hard, so worked so hard to put together, are then almost eliminated to zero because of the tax liability that's eating everything. And the next generation, of course, because the estate is maybe not all in cash, it's probably not all in cash, start selling the assets, maybe has to sell the assets for 50 cents on the dollar, and then is hit with 40% tax rate on 50%, so only 10% remains instead of keeping the whole 100% of the estate intact. So there's strategies that we utilize to do that in a very elegant fashion, and with proper planning, there's no need to lose any of the estate to taxes.
So you've got several categories of taxation that you look at. When you're uncovering somebody's tax opportunities, you look at several different areas, I understand. So the unrealized tax opportunity zones, where they may not be deploying strategies in different parts of the tax code.
Yeah, there's obviously the tax code is an ever-changing landscape, but there's always opportunities to use the tax code to our advantage. And it has to do with just innovation, just financial innovation in kind of combining different stakeholders so that we can achieve the desired tax benefit. And so it's really it's kind of like a chess game. There's many different moves that we can make. We know what figures we have, what we're playing with, but it's not a cookie cutter approach. We can't solve it with a cookie cutter approach because every situation is different, but we can stack different strategies together to achieve different results for different people depending on where they're coming from and where they want to go. So absolutely, the tax code is that's the gold mine, but it needs to be understood well, and it needs to be, somebody has to keep an eye on it. Somebody has to keep studying it. That's our job, and that's our job. It's not only to understand and study it, but then figure out how to take advantage of government incentives, of you know, and again, in a legal and ethical way, but in our client's advantage.
So when a new client comes into your universe, they may not always have clarity about their own goals and objectives. How do you help them gain clarity and gain an understanding about what their own financial goals and needs are?
What I really try to understand is, of course, their background, but then I try to understand what their lifestyle is like, and you know what it entails, and how much money is needed, and what their dream situation would be going forward. Do they want to retire tomorrow? Do they want to retire in 10 years? And you know, when I know all this, then it's not so difficult to project, you know, how much money is needed to sustain a certain lifestyle in retirement. If you know, we try to simulate, we try to define and model different scenarios. So somebody is not sure, say, well, you know, I can probably work for 5 or 10 years, but what if I can't work after 5 years? What happens if I have to retire in 5 years? So putting different models, different scenarios on the table to be prepared for different circumstances, different timeframes is very important. And 99% of the time, the people that I work with, they've never done it in their life. So this is an exercise that they're doing for the first time. They know that they should do it, but they really don't know how to approach it. So it's this process that really, you know, puts people at ease, because now now at least you have some visibility. You see the light at the end of the tunnel. You know where you're going. You're gonna know whether you have way too little money or you have enough money. But that's why this taxation issue is so important, because I have not met anybody that has too much money. It's usually, well, how are we going to be able to retire? Some people, you know, it's actually interesting. It's more true. The bigger problems are with people that are, you know, and they're doing really well as they're in their working years, and they're living in an expensive state, and they like the life in that expensive state, and they want to stay in that expensive state. So for those people, the Social Security part of the retirement income is going to maybe cover 20% of their needs. So there's a huge gap between what the government is going to provide and what they actually need. Whereas somebody who's always lived in an inexpensive state, you know, maybe the Social Security income is going to be enough to cover 80% of their needs. So as strange as it may seem, it's the people that are doing pretty well in their life, and they're affording themselves a good lifestyle, and obviously they want to keep that lifestyle. That is where the biggest gap is, and that's where the biggest opportunities are, because there's usually a much bigger cash flow in terms of, okay, while they're working, there's still good income coming in, but it's about saving money on that income, not paying too much taxes, paying the least amount of taxes, so that we can leverage that, and with the different strategies going forward, untax that retirement to achieve that 2 to 3 to 4 times more money in their pockets when they retire with the same amount of money.
So it sounds like a lot of the folks that you've worked with, this is the first time they've really gained that clarity about what's going to happen in their future and what they're doing now, how that impacts their future.
Absolutely. Most people have absolutely no idea. They know what they have. They know that what they've done. Most people are somehow, if they've saved their retirement, it is probably in an IRA or in a 401k. They've seen the market downturns and upswings. They're just thrown around like a little boat in a stormy sea, with absolutely, they have no control over what's going on, and they're relying on sometimes, you know, themselves, sometimes traditional financial advisors who, again, if the market goes down, their advice is, well, everybody lost money, so we just got to wait it through, which I think is not the right answer, but that's what typically happens. So that's where they are, and they think that's the only option. And when they see what is possible, how we can do much more with much less risk, with almost no risk. There's always a certain risk, but almost no risk. It is a huge revelation. So it is, but it is very different.
So what specific value do you bring to clients that they probably don't find elsewhere? I know we've talked a lot about tax stuff. That may be the answer you give here today, but I'd just like to see what you think differentiates you and provides that unique value proposition for potential clients who are thinking about working with you.
Well, first and foremost, it's really holistically understanding the client. It's obviously we want to get them into an untaxable situation. That's the technical goal. But what I try to understand, the emotional part of things, the family dynamics, the dreams of the person that I'm dealing with. And so if I can put myself in their shoes and understand their dreams and desires, then I think obviously if we have good cards to play with, if we have the assets to work with, then typically we can achieve much better results than what they were expecting, just because of these guaranteed returns with tax savings and just the restructuring of assets in a smart way so they keep generating tax-free income going forward.
What are the untaxed retirement income plan strategies, and how can they help someone thinking about working with you untax their retirement?
There's a bunch of strategies that come into play in different circumstances, but the goal of all these strategies is to gradually restructure retirement assets that are typically part of a deferred account. A lot of people have their retirement savings in an IRA or a 401k, which means that it's something that is growing untaxed, but when it's distributed in a regular way, it's heavily taxed. And not only that, Social Security is usually taxed on top of it, and Medicare costs are increased. So what an untaxable strategy is a typical strategy is how do we reduce or eliminate taxes on distribution of these retirement funds and convert them into a Roth type structure, meaning that first convert at normally if somebody converts their retirement assets into a Roth, they're still heavily taxed. But if we can minimize and or eliminate that conversion tax, and if we can then have a Roth type structure that one can harvest for income in a tax-free manner, in an untaxable manner, that's when we've achieved our goal. And this typically is, in a very simplified fashion, what these strategies are. We are taking something that is taxable currently, and we're gradually converting them. We need about 5 years to do that typically, not more than that. That doesn't mean that one cannot take income during that time, but the big chunk of money is being converted over 5 years and then generates income going forward. But it can generate income even within those 5 years. So that's kind of the time frame and the process. It's about converting taxable money into untaxed in a tax-free or tax-minimized fashion, and then putting that money into a structure that has a Roth tax status, which means that it generates income tax-free going forward.
Yeah, and I think that's a big deal, because the conventional wisdom in financial planning is that if you save in these deferred accounts, that you're likely to be in a lower tax bracket in retirement. And the reality might be that they're actually in a higher tax bracket, and without any proper planning, they may very well end up paying a higher tax rate when they distribute those assets.
Absolutely, absolutely. If we look at the tax rates in this country, the history of tax rates, the highest individual tax rate in this country was 90%, or almost 100%, including state taxes. So, and that typically happens after a big event, such as, after the Second World War, taxes went up to 90%. And it usually happens when government starts printing money, because it's just the way the economy works. So the fact that we're currently still in one of the lowest tax periods in the history of this country is just telling that, if taxes go anywhere, they have to go up. And we believe that there's Nobel Prize winners that they're all thinking the same. They say taxes have to double. They have to double at some point. So just winging it and being at the mercy of where the taxes are going to go, they're not going to go down. So what will most certainly happen for somebody who's going to live at least for 10 more years is they have probably deferred taxes at a lower rate than they would be paying when they distribute it, which makes absolutely no sense, because they would make more sense to pay taxes right away. So an exit strategy, such as the strategies that we deploy are a huge deal. So we want to do this as soon as possible. We need 5 years of time. We think 5 years, we're buying time. It's still enough time to kind of not get into a really much higher tax situation, hopefully. But the sooner we do it, the better. And absolutely, there's an absolute danger of having to pay twice the taxes that were actually deferred.
So for anybody thinking about these ideas and maybe exploring these strategies and whether or not they're fit for themselves, waiting is not a good idea. Find out now, get some clarity about what's possible as soon as possible, so that you can actually be proactive about putting yourself in an optimal tax position.
Yeah, waiting is a terrible idea. Waiting is like putting your hand in the sand. It's like pretending nothing's gonna happen when we see all around us things are just moving in strange directions. So it's much wiser to plan for it, to be prepared, and to legally and ethically get out of this race. I mean, if the government gives us an option to convert our funds into a never ever taxed environment anymore, we should take advantage of that. We should take advantage of that and pay our share of taxes if we have to pay excess. Utilizing the strategies that we've developed, we can minimize that even further or eliminate completely. But once you are in that tax-free bubble, that's the place to be, because then even if taxes double, zero is still zero. Doubling a zero is still a zero. It's not going to be any more than zero.
So what advice would you offer somebody maybe considering seeking professional financial advice for the first time?
Well, it's kind of a gamble, because who do you trust, right? That's the big question. There's just so many different approaches to this same challenge. And the problem is the traditional financial advisor is not going to be doing whatever we're doing in our firm, and it's just a much bigger challenge. And so, I mean, it's kind of arrogant to say, but I think, you know, to find somebody that understands the concepts that we've been talking about, they can consider themselves lucky to find somebody that understands this and knows how to implement it, because there's not a lot of experts out there that do this. A lot of times you see, you know, it may be really expensive tax attorneys, you know, $1,000 per hour tax attorneys that may know some of these strategies, but they're more on the legal side of things. Whereas, you know, if one can combine the legal side of things with the help of a tax law firm, just like we do, and the financial side of things, I think that's a winning combination.
Yeah, I think there are limitations in every silo, whether it's a CPA or a tax attorney or different, the different unrealized tax opportunity zones. Working with that law firm on their own, they might have somewhat limited solutions, but when they combine with you, it opens up the possibilities for many of those folks.
It really opens up the possibilities and increases the value of certain strategies, increases it improves them, right? So, you know, in an example, in a situation where we're converting deferred accounts into untaxable, into a Roth type structure, it's the combination of it's the stacking of different strategies that maybe are more something that comes from the financial world combined with something that we can utilize from the legal perspective. It really delivers stellar results, even more than if we're just using the financial perspective.
So we're ending our time together here on this episode. Is there anything else you'd like potential clients to know about you or your approach to how you can help them experience a financial transformation?
You know, what I like to say is we all have just 24 hours a day. And I think if somebody offers you a chance to learn something that may be very beneficial to you, even if you're not in the market, even if you're not in a position to do anything with planning your financial future for whatever reason, just take the advantage of this and take the education, learn, and just maybe just take a note. And when you are ready, call that same person and then educate yourself to whatever you need to be educated at that moment, and try to take advantage of it, because nobody else is going to do it for you.
Well, to wrap things up, how can individuals get in touch with you if they're interested in learning more about your services and how you can help them?
Well, anybody that's interested to explore this further can contact us. They can get our contact information on our website, and then book an initial exploration session where we will figure out in a short meeting whether we're a good fit or not, whether we can help. And so I would say take advantage of that. We have a very full calendar, but we will try to accommodate anybody that's serious about learning more.
Well, great, Andrej. It's been a pleasure having a chance to learn more about your business and how you can help your clients. So thanks again for appearing on Finance Leaders.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Finance Leaders Retirement Insights. Be sure to check out our other top advisor interviews at financeleaders.net.